what do you think is the most important thing that those of us who are trying to help Haiti can do to take the next steps and to maximize their ability to chart a totally different and better future for themselves?
Well, I think one of the biggest complications, you know, I would argue that, but for immediate life-saving, that the NGOs have, by and large, been an inhibitor to progress in Haiti.
Explain that to
me. Well, it goes to a lot of things, and I get perceived as somehow, you know, trying to step out as somehow separate from this, but I'm very much part of this thing that has to evolve, and the reason I'm part of it, as those I might criticize are part of it, is because the effort has for so long been to compete with each other for funds rather than to compete together against poverty. The simplification that's kind of a cancer in these situations is the alternating cultures of disaster relief and sustainable development, which have to, in Haiti, we have, for example, I think somewhere around 65% of the buildings that were stamped red, meaning those buildings that are not inhabitable post-earthquake, some 65% have been re-inhabited. All of the work of the NGOs that's happened with one earthquake could go right back to January 12th. There's about 650,000 people still in the camps that are living in incredibly unsanitary, vulnerable conditions with new weather systems on the way again. So in the moving forward of it, I think that the whole idea of, first of all, I think people have to start being very honest with donors and educating donors on what their money does. And so that there's, and in Haiti now, why I think that there's a great opportunity, and I would say that I'm cautiously optimistic about what can happen, especially as there's likely going to be a president who, at the very least, can take the world stage, I think can create a sense of a dynamism that matches that of one's response to Haiti when one goes there, so that he can speak to those who have not been there and encourage some belief in a treadmill that has gone on in travesty for so long. But Haiti is, the response, the feeling that one has going there is that this is the place where you can show a great example of the most hopeless circumstances being turned around. And one where, with the proper coordination, with an integration of those cultures of emergency relief, sustainable development, certainly the Haitians are, and they're so, you know, often miss the perception of a dependence that's been created. That's about a 12-hour psychosocial course, because these are people that would be able to rebuild the pyramids. This is one of the most resilient culture that not only myself, as someone who's traveled somewhat, but all of the people who are far more experienced than I am in this, that I've worked with in Haiti, say the same thing. There's something about Haiti. And the something about Haiti that's most important is that if we complete I'll backtrack 1 second. What happens in this competitive culture of NGOs is that there are projects that lend themselves to emotional support of donors, and they become kind of trendy. And so the NGOs tend to do demonstrations of project completion, which are ultimately left incomplete, considered in the long term a failure, which they would be, in an effort to move on to whatever is the most financeable next step. And that comes really out of the way in which those two cultures of emergency relief and sustainable development have not found a way to recognize their parallel course.
Yeah, let me explain that the place in the world where these problems will reconcile best, in my opinion, and it's somewhat self-serving, obviously. I'll explain why. was in Aceh in Indonesia after the tsunami. Because when the UN asked me to work there for a couple of years and coordinate it, I said, look, our goal should be to work our way out of a job. I mean, why does he have a school for girls? Because if he educates them properly, they don't need to be dependent on him for the rest of their lives, and they can have their own families, they can help their own communities. So if you do any kind of NGO work that's not a disaster, you should be dedicated to making yourselves irrelevant to the day-to-day sustainability of the people you're supporting. There is no other rational. For the first time ever, when in a large-scale disaster in Indonesia, we developed basically an online tracking system where we put the government donations of the donor countries, the World Bank and all those other people, everybody's giving money, with the private NGO spending. We got all the major NGOs who agreed to sign up. And everything had to be approved according to the economic plan that the Indonesians had developed. And then we did it together so that it wasn't like they were establishing a beachhead among these poor people and then they could keep helping them forever. And I have to say that it was easier in Indonesia because the president of Indonesia put a magnificent man named Pak Kantoro in charge of it, and it was easier because it was one small province of a very vast country. This was the capital of Haiti. It was 30% of the population, 2/3 of the GDP crushed in a day. It's harder, but it's the same thing. And so this is the first time we've ever gotten, like a lot of the NGOs who agreed to put up on our, you can go down and check our website now, you can see at least how the NGOs are spending their money, that every expenditure of any amount by most of the NGOs is approved by the Commission. The Haiti Commission is now half Haitian and half donors. They all work together. Whether we'll succeed or not, I have no earthly idea. But what he's telling you is true. And the Haitians have been abused and neglected, but they've also been patronized. As this, oh, this is so much more than any other part of our hemisphere. It's like we'll be able to pour our hearts out there for life. That's not what they need. They need for you to give them the support to stand on their own 2 feet, make their own decisions, whether you like it or not, raise their kids, and build a future. That is what we are, and at least that's what he and I are trying to do. And in the next